Hello and welcome to the screencast of the webinar GNU Health for Beginners. My name is Edgar Hagenbichler and I made a webinar in July because of data protection rights of the participants. It was not recorded, so that's the reason why I will show you the slides and the content of this webinar now. You can use these slides under a Creative Commons license, share alike, so also for commercial reasons. And you find these slides at my homepage at hagenbichler.at, and here you see the link to the slides. The webinar took place with a lot of participants from different countries, from Tanzania, from Nigeria, from Egypt, from Sweden, from the Netherlands, and so on. And it started with a self-introduction. Where am I from? Where am I now? Participants shared some more information about themselves. What is their GNU Health project and what are their expectations on the webinar? When some questions arise, they of course happen to be answered. And then we made a use case. The use case is to document your own health record with GNU Health. GNU Health is the open source, free, libre health information system that can also be used by doctors, by hospitals, by officials, and also by patients. So the use case to document your own health record: first you have to create the party, you create the user, then you assign permission rights to this user, then you create the patient, you document your diagnosis with ICD-10, International Classification of Diseases by the WHO. You can document the medication, the vaccinations, and the hospital stays. And it is recommended that you scan your medical reports and attach them to your personal record. Where do you find the software itself? So if you go to www.gnuhealth.org, there you find everything you need. You have a download section, you have the documentation, and in the documentation you have a link to the wiki book GNU Health. In this wiki book you should find everything you need for the basics, for starting and for installing your system. And what is also very good is that there is a demo database server. It is at federation.gnuhealth.org, port 8000. And you can log in there and we will do it, and I will show you how it works. But first, that is one possibility to try GNU Health. So with this demo database, you can use username admin and the password GNU Solidario. But the other hand, or the other way, is to use a Raspberry Pi 4 system. And that's a great thing. It's really very cheap and it's like a personal desktop computer. You can use it. There are systems with 4 GB RAM, that's quite enough. You can use GNU Health on an SD card with 32 GB, and there are possibilities that you download it at the GNUHealth.org homepage with the user root or user GNU Health and the password freedom, and the demo database then is with user admin and password GNU Solidario. Or you can also alternatively download the system from opensusi.org. There are different users and different passwords. Those are written on my slides. A Raspberry Pi with 4 GB and with a power supply cable and an HDMI cable and the SD card and the box and so on, you can say that would be approximately around $100 US. So that's really very cheap, and you can use it like all the professional people use GNU Health. Of course, you also need a mouse and a keyboard and an HDMI monitor, but usually those things most people have. And you have to invest those $100 US for the hardware, and of course, because GNU Health is free libre software, it's also without cost. Of course, you could support GNU Health if you make a membership, a GNU Health membership for $120 US per year. You get once as an entry gift a RSP4, and of course with the GNU Health SD card. And so that's a really good thing. You can support GNU Health worldwide, and you have a system with which you can try and have privacy and security reasons all in your hands, because it's, like you see on my picture, it's a very small computer. So, but we will try to make a login. As I told you, there are 2 different ways. One way is to go to the federation.gnuhealth.org, port 8000. You will find as a database health 36. We can use admin, make the login, then you give a password, GNU Solidario. GNU Solidario is the organization that provides GNU Health, which is made mainly by Dr. Luis Falcon, a physician and software developer and software freedom activist who lives in Spain, in Gran Canaria. So you see, that's the demo database which you can use with a web client, with a normal web browser, but we will also use a client. This client you would have to install at your computer. Of course, best if you use it with your Raspberry Pi or with your Linux server, with your Linux computer, OpenSUSE or what else. But of course, you can also use the client only for Windows, and then you have also the possibility to make this login, and it's a little bit different with the surface of the program. So the user interface is a little bit different, but it's the same functionality mainly. So again, we have this Triton client. You can download this Triton client from triton.org. We take username admin, and I provided the system first with the credentials. So what you're needing is GNU Health Federation. Again, you see the host is with federation.gnuhealth.org, database health36, username admin. And if we connect now, we use the same database but with the client. I use GNU Solidario. Again, of course, if you would install the system on your Raspberry Pi, for example, then you should change your password. So we connect now to the demo database, and you see there are already a lot of functionalities, modules shown. That's really one big strength of GNU Health. It has a lot of integrated functionalities. Some people say at the beginning maybe it would be better just to log in as a health doctor, with a role as a GNU Health doctor, so that you will not see as many things. But I want to show you, if you get your system and you want to see what everything is inside, so that's the reason why I left it in this way. So you see at the beginning, you see the a party, and of course you can make some configuration to that. Again, parties. Party is something which could be a person, an organization, a pharmacy, a hospital, and so on. Then you can manage the addresses, the contact mechanisms, and some categories. Then there is something about the products that you use in your hospital, or what else, of course, medications, vaccinations, but everything that you use in normal medical situations. Also important, financial things. GNU Health is based on Triton, that's a business software, and Triton is based on a Postgres database, and it's written in Python. So you see that you can manage the currencies, you can manage the inventory and the stock purchases. Of course, there is a calendar where you can manage the appointments, and then the big point that's interesting for us, especially about health, GNU Health itself, the module. And here you have patients. To have a patient, remember, we have first to make a party. Then there is something that is called books of life, because not everything in a patient's life is together with hospitals or doctors. You can document all other life events that are important on the pages of life. You have a segment on genetics. Then you have the possibility to document and make the appointments for the hospital, for the doctor's office. You can manage the prescriptions with the medications. You have a very good system with laboratory. You can manage the health professionals and the institutions. Again, first, always you have to manage them as a party. And then you make them as a health professional. I will show you then. Then there is a segment about imaging, of course, radiology, ultrasound, and so on. The demographics, then the hospitalizations, if patients come to the hospital, of course, everything that is necessary if you are in a hospital to manage the hospital, meal and intensive care, and so on. You can document the surgeries, the pediatrics, you have obstetrics. There is a module for the archives. Now, new special, the contact tracing, especially in the side of the pandemic, of the COVID-19 pandemic, but not only. There was, GNU Health was very good for this, for example, for dengue fever, for you can use it for malaria, you can use it for every disease that can be transmitted. Then there is a module for nursing, for support center, the ambulances, something that is called the federation, that's very important, health services. You can manage the reporting of the system. Of course, there is a segment for configuration of the system, conditions, which is usually diagnosis with ICD-10, genetics, diagnostic imaging, also very important, functioning and disability. Of course, the procedures and the laboratory that you use. Again, the institutions, medicaments, and of course also you have the possibility to make an immunization schedule, so that you can say to the patient, or you can assign to a patient a special schedule what the patient should get. The federation has some other possibility of configuration, and then there is also the administration, and you have to click on this tab and then go down. So you can manage the user interface, models, sequences, scheduler, localization for the different languages. You can manage the modules of GNU Health, and what we will do the next, when we have made a party, then you can assign this party to a user, and the user is somebody who has a user role for GNU Health for the GNU Health system. You can of course also manage the countries, and there is also managing the WebDAV calendar system. So that's a lot, but we will start, as we said. We create a new party. That's the first thing. So you have to double click at parties, and here it is. In the demo database, you see there are a lot of patients and institutions. For example, I made an institution, the General Hospital of Vienna, or some other. The GNU Solidario Hospital, that's the hospital that is our hospital that we use. If you assign a user, then you would be a doctor or a user of the GNU Solidario Hospital. Of course, you can change this and you can assign your own hospital or your own institution. And here you see you can also have an unidentified patient. For example, if there is a trauma and the patient comes and you don't know the name, of course you have to administer him and to help him. And here are some demo patients that we already have in the system. And we will now make a new party. As I told you, you have to make a new record, a new party. If you want to make a patient, if you want to make an institution, first and everything is to make a new party. So I will just assign a name, test22, and I say that's a person. And if it's a person, of course it could be also a patient. And if it's a person, of course it could be also a health professional, a nurse, a doctor, anybody who works in the hospital. Other possibilities could be that you are an institution. Of course, then you cannot be a person. And you could be an insurance company, or you could be a pharmacy. That is also a possibility to check. You can assign a date of birth. Usually it's quite a good idea to assign a date. You have to assign a gender, male or female. Residence could be in Spain. Could also take, for example, Austria. See, and also the citizenship, for example, would be Austria, and so on. So you can always save the record. That's always a good idea. So we have saved this record now. It's written here. I close it, and I also make an internal user now. This is the person who logs in. So if you get GNU Health, for example, if you download it from GNUHealth.org homepage, or if you get it from the OpenSUSE, or if you if you get it from the Federation system together with a Raspberry Pi and an SD card, then you of course want to check in, or then you want to log in with your internal user. We make the same user as we made our test person, so let's write test22 and say create this, because until now it is not in the database. So it's now a new internal user, and I can now say what is my login. Of course it could be anything, but I take again the same name, test22, and also the usual password is GNU Solidario, and of course you could also assign some CalDev, and you can then assign a calendar trait. For example, assign this calendar, and then you also have to give some preferences. And here are some languages that are all pre-installed, but you also find a lot of languages at the WebLate localization websites. So there are a lot of languages that use GNU Health and translate GNU Health. Of course, the main language is English, but there's also German, Spanish, French, Italian, Portuguese, Lao, or Chinese. Not all, I have to admit, are fully translated, but of course there are a lot of translations, and anybody can help and translate it. And of course, what's the strength of free Libre software and of free GNU Health, that everybody can change the system. If you have a hospital, or if you are a doctor and you have your own office and you have a health system, a software, usually you can't change anything. Or if you want to change anything, then you have to pay a lot for it and you have to wait for it. So that's a big advantage of free software, that you all have the right to use the software, but also to investigate it, how it works, that you can change it, and that you can give it to your colleagues even if you have changed it. So that's all the free license that uses GNU Health. So of course we have our internal user, we say as preference we use the language English, and now we want to give some permissions, some access permissions. And if you see, you can give access permissions. There are a lot of groups that are pre-installed. I'll show it. There are nearly 30 groups. And if we would click on them, so it would not be the best thing, because some groups or roles have different privileges that would interfere with some others. So we have to just take 24 of those 30. I'll take this one, the administration, but now that's one of the strengths, of course. If you say, that was too much and I want to give it to my employees, so they could just be the person who is working at the health front desk, also at the front desk, or you could assign the rights only to the doctor, so he doesn't know to see some finances or some stock things, but only the medical reports and only the medical things. So now, because we want to make a super user, we don't use the front desk, the doctor, and the social worker, and the back office. We use the other things again: inpatient administration, health lab administration, but not the health lab, because that would be some employee at the laboratory who does not need to see anything else. And again, we click on everything. Nursing administration, but not nursing, because again it would be the possibility to have a role that's just for nursing for the patient, and it's not necessary to have a lot of other things. So we see 6 of those groups we did not assign, but we used the other ones. And again, you'll see now there is no health lab only, but health administration, it is for everything. So again, we have to save. And now we have a new party and an internal user. And of course, if we made this now, we will try if it works. So what to do? We will save it again. Record saved, it's written here. And what's also important, you see if an record is active, you have here the checkbox for active, and that's as active market. And if you want to delete a party, for example, and most of the other records, then just uncheck this checkbox like this. And so it's still in the system, it's not completely deleted, but then you will not see it in the future. And that's also very important, because if you want to work with your patients, then you just want to see who are the active patients and not those who came 10 years ago and are not here now anymore. And as you also see, and that's also something that's similar to the other records, we have here the record for the party, and here we have the field for the party, and then you can change with this icon to make a switch of the view. Asks again if I want to save my record, and now we have switched to the whole list. And you see, here is now test 22. If it wouldn't be there, it's always a good idea to make a reload. It's this icon. So we can make with a reload again, and you see it's now a little bit differently sorted. So we have now the new party, and it should be the case that it's also a new user, and we will try this. So I will log out. I can quit. And here it was the system that we had before with the web server. It's a SAO web server. I will go back to the client. The wrong one. Here we are. So let's go back to the slide. Here we have been. We have the GNU Health login, and what we did now, we created a party in the user. Yeah, we had the test user. Here it is test 1.1. I took now test 2.2. We made a login. We checked everything for CalDAV. We did not assign an email address, but of course we could have done this. Then we assigned the permissions. Sorry. Then we did not remove the 6 permissions, but we did not click on them. We saved those, and we also remembered that it is possible to delete a party or user if you make an unmark of the active checkbox. And also we had the second hint with that we can switch the views between the specific record and the whole list. So now again we are with the client, and now we use our new user, test 22. We say connect. Again, it's the same password, and you see here it connects as test 22 to federation.gnuhealth.org to the database health36, and now we have it as before, but only for the main lines, for the main tabs. And we had here the party. We don't look at the products now, and not on the financial, and on the currencies, and not on the inventory, not on the purchase, not on the calendar. What we're interested in now is the health module, the GNU Health module itself. And now we want to have a patient. We want to make our record for our electronic medical record. And as you see now, there are 6 patients, but not test 22. Why? I told you. Because first you have to make the party, and then you have to make a new patient, and this new patient you can find from the party. So you click on this add icon, this plus symbol, and Now I have to look with which patient we got now. I make a new patient. And here we search a record. And here we have test 22, because this is a party that we can assign now. And now I can say OK, and I get this patient that is already administered, that is already managed. And you see, for example, you know how old is the patient because you put the date of birth into the party. And if the physician looks now at the patient, he doesn't want to count how many years, but you can display it, or it is displayed here that the patient is 60 years old, for example. So you see the name of the patient, the gender, the age, the critical information you would get then if you have some diagnosis. And of course, you can also display the general practitioner, you can display family, you can display the insurance. But now we want to focus on our use case. So we said we want to create the patient. We did do this now. And we will make a diagnosis. We will assign a diagnosis, and diagnosis in GNU Health are conditions. Of course, you could also put a picture to the patient. And now, if you want to relate the diagnosis, we have to go to the icon which opens related records. And you see, then you find a list. You could relate appointments or conditions or a disability assessment, diagnostics, ECG, some evaluations that we will do later. You can make lab reports or request a new order for laboratory. You have for the newborns the neonatal info. You have for the women the obstetric history. Now we have also ophthalmologic evaluations and so on. Now we will go to the conditions. Conditions are in the system ICD-10 diagnosis. And you see there is no condition, no diagnosis. You have to make a new one. Again, with this icon, create a new record. So we see we have the condition for our test patient, and here you find a lot of information, but always if you have something written in bold, that's a field that you have to fill in. So we make a condition, and as you see, you have your ICD-10. Of course, you can choose it with your windows. With your window, you can make it bigger. You can click it through. You can browse it through. Malignant neoplasms or anything else. So let's say we will search for diabetes. So E11 should be diabetes, and we have searched it, but obviously it was not a good idea. So we can just click it through. Of course, you can, yeah, here we are. So we have, for example, type 2 diabetes, and we assign this to the patient. You could also assign the severity, it's a moderate, or status, it's chronic, and date of diagnosis, for example, it's already 5 years ago, in 2015, and so on. You can write if the patient is currently on treatment, when did it start, when should it end, is there a code for it. You can assign the health professional who made the diagnosis, or who is the person who treats the patient, and again, always good idea to save the record. So record saved, you see it here. You click it away, and you can go back to the system now. So we close the tab, go back to the patient, and again we don't see anything. Why? Because we made the new condition, but we have first to reload the data, the record. And now we see there is the condition type 2 diabetes mellitus, but it's also written within the field of critical information. So that's what we did. Of course, you could also enter some other data, family name, residence, citizenship, occupation of the patients. The domiciliary unit is TU, it's the main address, a picture, as I already told you. But now the next thing, if you have a diagnosis, usually then you get some medication. How to do this? We have here at the patient the possibility for medication. And here you see a field for medications, and here you see another field for vaccinations. But this medication field with the medicament, you can give here and make, again, create a new record. So you see, you have also a list. It's a list of the 500, or the list of the most important medicaments of WHO. You see there are a lot inside the system. You can look for them. So different possibilities. Anything you're looking for.